Do you want to play Lorcana, but your wallet looks like this? In my last video, you guys told me that my deck was too expensive, so I'm going to try building an aggro, mid-range, and control list for less than it would cost to buy all 3 starter decks. Let's get into it. Personally, I think the best ink combination for this kind of deck is probably Steel Amber, but those cards to make it work are way too expensive. So instead, we're going to look at a budget mid-range princesses deck using the colors of Amber and Sapphire. Okay, so let's start from the bottom. As for 1-drops, we'd probably love to have some Lilos, but at $13 a pop, I don't think we're going to be going down that line. So instead, we are going to add the Stitches. 4 Stitches is probably a good amount. It's a 2-2, and to follow on with that trend, I think I'm going to add 4 Flounders as well. Not 5. I'm somewhat tempted to go for the Dingle Hopper. I don't think it's a great card overall, but it could work with our mid-range game plan. Next up, we're going to add Minnie Mouse. It's a 2-cost, 2-3, but going with the Princess synergy is really important, so I think we'll add that as a 4-off. Another amazing card that Amber has to offer is Simba. 2-cost, 2-3 with Bodyguard. We really can't not add this. It does pair great with Lilo, so if you don't have these budget restrictions, I would really encourage you to add 4 copies of Lilo to pair with the Simba. Lantern is too expensive for us to run. It's $5 a pop. That'd take up way too much of our budget. Our Guest is an interesting option, but because we're going for a sort of faster angle than a control deck, I don't think we add it. We're going to add Aurora, 2 costs, 2-2, quest for 2, and it's a princess. We would probably want to add a few copies of Ariel to this list, but at $8.64, we can't really afford to fit it within our budget restrictions. Mr. Smee is a cheap card at 13 cents and is a 3-cost 2-5, which is an okay stat line. It would be better if it quested for 2, but we should be able to get some favorable trades with this. I definitely think we want to add a couple copies of Just in Time. It essentially acts as our ramp and will be really important for hitting our key 5 drops. Again, we're going to add 4 copies of Jasmine, really just for the princess synergy, but also because it quests for 2. Because our other Ariel is too expensive, I think we're going to add Ariel and Human Legs. Pretty okay card, but it does quest for 2 and it has princess synergy, so let's just chuck it in there. You might be wondering why I'm not adding in more ramp cards like Fishbone Quill or Mickey Mouse, and honestly, the deck doesn't really need it as we're not top heavy. Rapunzel is far too expensive at $60 a pop, so instead we're going to substitute it for 4 copies of Cinderella. Not quite the same, but it is a princess and it does heal up our cards. Next we're going to add the amazing value card and amazingly statted Maleficent. 4 cost, 3-4, quest for 2. What more could you want? We're going to add a couple copies of Maximus here because it has Bodyguard and support, which is very helpful to our mid-range game plan. It is a bit expensive at $3 though, so I might consider cutting down the copies later on when we're optimizing. Now for the core of the sort of princess mid-range synergy deck, we're going to be adding 4 copies of Moana of Motunui. This card's really good because it's a 1-6 but quests for free, and it has the main synergy effect of whenever this character quests, you may ready other princess characters, and they can't quest for the rest of the turn. What that really means is you're going to quest with all your princess characters first, then quest with Moana, which will re-ready your princess characters, and then you can make some trades, or even just leave them there so they aren't vulnerable and exerted for your opponent on the next turn. Next we're going to add 4 copies of Aurora Dreaming Guardian, a pretty insane card in a mid-range deck because it has Protective Embrace, which gives our other characters ward, which will let us avoid spot removal, which is a very common threat in the meta with cards like Let It Go, Hades, Dragonfire, Maleficent Monstrous Dragon. Jasmine Queen of Agrabah is a pretty good card too. I don't think we need too many of them, so we're only going to buy 2 copies for $2.71 a pop. I've just remembered a really good action card we've forgotten to pick up, and that is 2 copies of You Have Forgotten Me. This card's really good because we can sort of expend our resources, get some board presence on, and then use this card to prevent our opponent from reacting by removing some of their options. Normally in this kind of list, you'd want to run some better top-heavy cards like Robin Hood, Rockstar Stitch, Surface Stitch, or, mainly Hades. We can't really afford that with our budget though, so instead we're going to add 4 copies of Mufasa. Mufasa's pretty standard card, 6 cost, 4-6, but it does quest for free, which should hopefully help us close out some games. And if we're able to give Mufasa ward with our Aurora, then we won't be able to be targeted by spot removal. Also forgot to add in some item cards. We're going to add 2 Eye of Fates, not too many because we're not a full aggro deck, but this does help us get some extra quests to close out games quicker against slower control decks. We're at 68 cards now, so we've got to make some cuts. I think I'm going to cut 2 copies of Mini because we already have 12 2-drops. Also going to cut 2 copies of Mr. Smee because we're not very good, and most of the time on turn 3, we're probably going to be playing Just in Time to ramp into a 5 cost anyway, so we don't need as many free costs as you normally would. Dingle Hopper's not the best card in the world, so unfortunately I'm probably going to cut 2 copies of that as well. Definitely replace these Dingle Hoppers with Lilos that quest for 2 if you get the chance. And lastly, we've got to make some cuts somewhere, so I'm going to cut out 2 copies of the Maximus. It's a pretty good card, but it's not a princess, so So we can probably afford to cut it because it doesn't add any synergy. Alright, and that's it for our budget Amber Sapphire mid-range princesses deck. Let's go see how it performs in a game. As I was getting into the game, I realized I made a bit of a mistake here. No! I actually mistook the 4-cost Maleficent for the 5-cost ones. So we're just going to remove all 4 copies of that Maleficent and add in 4 copies of the other Maleficent. This one is the amazingly statted 5-cost, 3 attack, 6 defense, and 3 quest Maleficent. I said it about the other one and I didn't feel quite right, and I couldn't quite put my finger on why until I was about to launch up the game. Alright guys, and here we are with our budget mid-range princesses deck. We've only got a 1-drop and a 3-drop, so I think we have to mulligan quite aggressively for a 2-drop here to have a proper curve, so we're just going to get rid of all of our 5 and 6 drops. We don't find the 2-drop, but we do at least get another Stitch, so we'll have something to play on turn 2. Oh, and there's the mini. Alright, so I think we ink the Stitch and play the Stitch. The 2/2 is quite a nice stat line into Captain Hook because their challenge doesn't really matter too much. So I'm probably okay just questing here in front of it. What are we going to ink? I think maybe the Queen of Agrabah we want to ink because we don't have any Jasmines in hand. And then we'll quest with Stitch. Okay, I mean, making them use a 3-cost removal onto our 2-cost card is pretty good, but obviously just doing it for tempo. They want to keep the Captain Hook so they can challenge whatever my 3-drop is. Interestingly enough, the 3-drops actually, Mr. Smee, 2/5, really well statted for Captain Hook, so I'm pretty happy with this. I think we are going to ink the Maximus, because we've already got some very solid 5-drops here, and then play the Mr. Smee. We're just playing Curvestone right now, but I think that's enough, especially into the deck we're playing against. Okay, and they sacrifice some tempo to play friends with the other side. But Purple Steel's a really interesting combination. They're probably like a full control deck. What do we ink here? I don't know if we need 2 Auroras, especially as they don't have any spot removal. Yeah, no spot removal. The only thing we'd be worried about maybe is the Elsa Spirit of Winter. Aurora could be really useful there. But again, I don't think we need 2 of them, so let's ink this Aurora, and then we can play our Cinderella and quest with Mr. Smee. Okay, so our opponents played Maleficent here. They're really digging for some cards to respond to our board. Looks like... oh no, they're not playing a 2-drop. They're just inking. Okay, easy choice here. We ink for Mr. Smee, and then, because we don't have spot removal, I think it's more important for us to apply pressure into this game, as we're the beatdown deck, they're the slower deck, so we want to play our free quest card, which is pretty insane. They could take out Cinderella or Mr. Smee here, but I think we just want to quest anyway to get some lore on the board, so let's do that. It would be really nice if we drew into a Moana or Motunui here. It would work really well with our board. And there's the Tinkerbell, so -1 to everyone. Doesn't really affect the state of the board. They still have to trade 2 into the Cinderella. Now, the one thing that does affect us is if Tinkerbell trades into the Mr. Smee, then they're when you play, their Puny Pirate. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may deal 2 damage to opposing character. So I think there's a really good argument for not questing at all with Mr. Smee here, and just questing with Maleficent. This is where, you know, if you had a lot of money and an unlimited budget, which we do not, Rapunzel would be an amazing card here, because we could, you know, heal up certain cards outside of that threshold. I think we want to keep applying pressure, or what we could do is, we could even just play the Aurora, because that means they can't choose us. So that's a really good idea, actually. We can get more quests that way. So let's ink for Cinderella, and then play the Aurora, so that way, even if they kill the Mr. Smee, they won't be able to choose with -2 damage. And we can just keep, you know, trying to push as many... so we can keep trying to push as much lore as we can, as quick as we can, to outpace this matchup. Oh, it's unfortunate that we chose to ink Cinderella here because Dinglehopper is not as good. The reason I did ink Cinderella was in case they played a whole new world and made us discard our entire hand, or they played a You Have Forgotten Me. It's like they chose to just quest in our face here rather than trade, which is interesting. Maybe we respond in kind by doing the same. best option here is probably to play the Mufasa and then quest with Mr. Smee and Maleficent, but not Aurora, just so we can keep that ward effect to counter the Tinkerbell. We are threatening lethal here, so we are going to have to clear some of our board. Alright, so the Captain Hook trades into our Mr. Smee, taking it out. The Tinkerbell can also trade into our Mr. Smee, but they won't be able to apply the -2 damage onto our Mufasa, and it won't even kill our Aurora. Okay, so this part of the game's getting pretty scary, mainly because our opponent probably has a lot better draws than we do in the late game, so I think we're just going to have to start pushing as much lore as we can. One thing we can do here, actually, is we can play Dingle Hopper and Stitch, so that way we can quest in their face with Mufasa. Or was that the best choice? I think it probably was. And then we'll heal up Aurora outside of Grab Your Swords range. Oh, actually, sorry, I thought it would heal for 2. It's still inside Grab Your Swords range. Do we just quest here? I think we just quest here. I don't think it matters too much. I think we're just trying to push as much quest as we can to push to 20. We're so close now, we're only 3 off. Yeah, our opponent does hit into the Tinkerbell. I wonder if a ward still applies? A ward does still apply, interestingly enough. I'm not sure if that trigger of events would apply in the physical card game, but apparently it does in this one. I mean, the Elsa would have been able to exert our Aurora anyway, so it is good that we quested with her, and we can keep threatening lethal this way just by playing out our Aurora. We're gonna have to remove our Mufasa so that we can't win next turn. They do have a lot of lore on board, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Oh, this is really interesting. I think we have to quest here because we're not going to be able to clear their board efficiently. So I think we threaten lethal by questing with Aurora and then just hoping they don't draw into like an Ursula, because I think Ursula is the only way we lose here. I don't want to play Bodyguard, don't come unexerted, thank you. That way we can keep Simba for the 1 lore there. So unless we have an Ursula here to give us -1 lore, I think we win. Or unless we have like some form of spot removal. Okay, they're brooming into friends from the other side. Oh, but that just put it back into their deck? Yeah, back into their deck, so... Oh! Oh, and we get hit with the Elsa. Oh, we barely lose. That's so unfortunate. Did they top deck the Elsa? I think they might have. They still can't win next turn though, because they did trade into us. So hopefully we can still win, because what, plus 12, 19. Alright, well as long as they don't top deck another Elsa or an Ursula, I think we still win. Please, please no big top deck. They're just going to quest with their whole board. Oh my god, the suspense is killing me. What is that final card? I want to know if we win or not. Oh! Yes! It was just a normal Elsa. Oh, I saw the card up for a second and it scared me. Hey guys, so personally I didn't think that recording just 1 game was enough to really show off the deck, so I'm going to try playing another couple of games and we'll see how we do with our mid-range princesses deck. Okay, and we're into the mulligan here. Looks like we've already drawn out a 1, 2, 3, 4 curve, and every card is inkable, so we might even be looking for specific cards here. Honestly, I like keeping the 1-drops in my hand, because, you know, it's just a perfect card to ink. They're both 2/2s, we have control of which cards we ink and which cards we play. You know what? I don't want any of these cards to go back into my deck, so I'm going to stick with what we have. It would be nice to fish for Moana of Motunui and like a just in time so we can curve into that on turn 4, but I don't think we want to be too greedy. Going second's not the worst for a mid-range deck, because we shouldn't be able to get outpaced too fast and hopefully can trade well. I'm gonna ink for Flounder, because we're playing with Stitch as well. This is gonna reveal that we are Amber Sapphire, but hopefully it shouldn't matter too much. You do want to be wary of that sort of information you're giving to your opponent if you're trying to take the game really seriously. But in this case, I didn't want to ink a higher cost card just for the sake of protecting that information. Looks like our opponent is playing an Emerald deck, as they just inked the Tinkerbell, otherwise known as Inkabell. Okay, so a Genie has come down. I'm not used to seeing a 2-drop Genie, I'm only used to seeing the 6-drop Genie. I think we ink for Jasmine here, we keep the Mufasa because it would be a nice thing to curve into later. And we play out our Aurora. Unfortunately, we don't have any good trades into this Genie, so I might just pass until we reach turn 3 so we can play the Jasmine to trade into that Genie. A 2-3 stat line is pretty troublesome for us because we trade 2 for 1. Ink to Flynn, playing out a Cheshire Cat for tempo. Yeah, this is fine here to just play out the Jasmine and pass, I think, because if they go for a quest, we can trade really favorably. Probably should have inked for Ariel there instead of the Cinderella, but it'd be fine. We're a slower deck, so I'm okay stalling out the pace of this game, because they're an aggro deck, they're green, they're the ones who need to be questing. So the ball is in their court at this point. Yeah, they just revealed the friends from the other side. They used the Cheshire Cat to sing, so they are a Emerald. So they are a Emerald Amethyst deck. The same one that I have a video for if you want to click in the description. Looks like they're deciding if they want to quest with the Genie or not. I think they have to at this point because they've already exerted their Cheshire, but they decide not to. I suppose hoping to get a good trade on my 2-2. We could get around this by playing Bodyguard, but I'm not sure if there's much point. Yeah, I think our best play is just to trade the Stitch for the Cheshire. Simba's an okay play. It does save our Aurora, and it's not like we can get much value from playing out the Cinderella at the minute anyway. You know what? I'm just going to go for it. I think saving the Aurora here makes some sense. Actually, I don't think it makes any sense, but more what I think about it. Just inked for Ariel. Yeah, I think Cinderella doesn't have great trades here either, is my only concern, but we can use it to heal our Jasmine back up to full if we need to. Yeah, I think we're just going to go for it, play the Cinderella out. If we lose the Aurora, oh well. Playing a 2-5 Cinderella will let us trade it into the Genie afterwards as well, which isn't the worst. Yeah, they've done it, they've made the trade, probably going to quest with the Cheshire. Oh, and they do the Rafiki for the 1-1 in the Jasmine. I mean, still okay with this. We're actually ahead of them in lore, and they're the aggro deck, so we're definitely in a winning position here. Main problem is getting a nice trade into the Cheshire. I think the best way to do this is probably to ink for Flounder. Trade Cinderella into the Genie. Then play the Simba, maybe. Do we play the Simba or do we hold it for ink? I'm kind of tempted to hold it for ink so we can guarantee we can play both Mufasas. I'm going to do that instead. I don't actually remember how many uninkable cards are in this deck, so I probably could have done a more calculated move, but I think this is fine. Simba's not a great play on turn 5 anyway, especially if they have another Rafiki. The problem with playing out a Mufasa is if they Genie us. Mufasa has really nice trades into Kuzco, which is a massive upside of the card. It just has terrible trades into Cheshire Cat. Oh, beautiful. We're going to be able to play 3 Mufasas in a row. That's a lot of mid-game value. We could heal ourselves up here, which would stop a Rafiki from trading into us, but I think we kind of need to push questing a bit, because it might turn into a race as we're never going to want to trade with that Cheshire Cat at this point. If they play the Rafiki, it means they can't play the Genie on our Mufasa, but it looks like that's probably the play they're going for. Yeah, and there it is. All we have is Mufasas. I think we're definitely going to want to trade into the Maleficent here to slow them down somewhat. It does mean the Genie will trade into us, but at least that'll stop them from questing. Ooh, or the other option is we trade twice. Yeah, I think we do trade into the Maleficent here. And then we can trade twice into the Cheshire Cat if we need to. Or just quest. We don't have any removal for the genie, which is my primary concern, so we are going to just have to try and race them in lore. We can go for an ink on the Jasmine here. Play another Mufasa. The question is, do we quest with Cinderella, or do we go for 2 trades into the Cheshire Cat? How much quest do they have on board? I think it's better to go for the 2 trades in the Cheshire Cat, because then if they quest with Kuzco and Cheshire next turn, we'll be able to trade our Mufasa and Cinderella into the Cheshire and their Kuzco. So that's a dangerous amount of lore. Oh, and they're going to be able to win with Genie next turn. I think we made the wrong choice. I don't think it mattered in the end. We still couldn't have won, because even with 8 lore, 8 plus 9, that's still not enough. So we need some way to get rid of the evasive. We can't get rid of a Tinkerbell as well. So that looks like a complete loss for us. And we're going to be able to trade the Rafiki into the Cinderella. So that is just GG. Good game, my friend. We had a lot of Mufasas, but it wasn't enough. Well guys, I wanted to be realistic with you today. I'm not going to just keep resetting over and over again until we get 3 wins in a row. So currently we're at 1-1, and we'll see how we go in the 3rd game. Alright, and here we are, we're into the mulligan. We don't have any 1-drops or 3-drops, so I'm going to mulligan pretty aggressively by getting rid of anything 4 or above. Actually, I think the only uninkable cards we have in this deck right now are the 2 just in time, so if we had, more spending budget, we definitely would have wanted to fit in more of those powerful cards, or at least tend to be more powerful cards as a cost to being uninkable. Okay, we'll ink a Flounder to play a Flounder. See, this is where if we had access to those Lilos, this would be a really nice opening hand, because then we could play Lilo with Simba on 2, which would let us just get some nice early game aggression with questing. If we had that sort of opener into the aggro match up last game, they might not have been able to race us out as quickly. There wasn't really much we could do with the Genie just bouncing our Mufasa to hand. Okay, so in this situation, I think it's probably best to ink 1 Aurora and play a Simba so that it trades better into the Stitch. That'll let us safely ink with our... sorry, not ink. Safely quest with our Flounder. It looks like we're up against another aggro matchup as it's Amber Amethyst. We've had a bit of a slow turn though. We've had to play Be Our Guest to search for a card. Whenever you're in a tempo-based matchup like this one where they really want to race us out, it's really good to see that your opponent's needing to play those sorts of cards, because it means that you got the rhythm, you got the flow on your side. The flow of the match is on your side, or tempo. Okay, I don't think the Simba's as useful now on turn 3 and later in the game, so I'm gonna ink the Simba to play a Jasmine. And then we'll quest with both Flounder and Simba. This is more because having, those cards with higher quest counts later in the game can really help. Yeah, there's the one situation where the second Simba would have been nice because of a Rafiki. But it trades 1 for 1, so we're pretty okay with that. It does mean they'll be able to trade into our Jasmine 2 for 1 next turn, which isn't ideal. I don't really want to play You Have Forgotten Me because they have card advantage right now. So I think the best plan is to instead ink it. Might regret this later, but instead ink it and play Aurora, which I think we might keep on board because these are princesses, so we don't want to trade with the Rafiki 1 for 1. Ideally what we can do is we can get Moana on board next turn, and then Moana quests on turn 6, we can go for a big swing turn play with all the princesses we have on board. It looks like they're a bit too scared to quest with the Rafiki at this point as well. Cinderella's an interesting option, but with our health totals, it's not going to really help us much. So I think we ink for Cinderella, keep the Mufasa, and then play Moana of Motunui and end turn. Well, actually, maybe not end turn, because I don't really mind if they trade into my Aurora with either Rafiki or Maleficent. So I'm just going to quest there. Okay, bait trade 1 for 1. Good choice. Otherwise I would have just traded with my Jasmine later on. Ooh, this is going to be a nice trade into the Elsa though. Oh, actually, we're not going to get a chance to because we're just going to exert us. They could be going for a Moana play here. I'm not sure, but what we can do is we can re-ready our Jasmine to protect it. So we'll ink a Stitch, play a Mufasa, quest with Jasmine, quest with Moana, and then this way we can unexert our Jasmine and end our turn, keeping Jasmine safe. Unfortunately, they can tap their Elsa to exert the Jasmine anyway, but at least they'll have to expend some resources to do that. But in the form of opportunity cost by not questing for 1. Okay, I thought this was an aggro deck, but it looks like they're more of a late game Amber Amethyst deck with the Elsa Spirit of Winter. Very good choice to freeze on Moana here. Definitely going to impact our game plan. Okay, well we can't quest with the Jasmine because of the Elsa trading into it, so I think we'll just play our Cinderella here and pass. Although we're still not going to get great trades in, but what we can do next turn is when Mufasa re-readies, we can trade the Mufasa and the Cinderella into their Elsa. Okay, that Jafar's really interesting. I think we do have to get rid of Elsa anyway. We'll play our Eye of Fates, trade the... Yeah, no, this will still work. So we can trade the Cinderella into the Elsa, the Jafar trades into our Cinderella, or our Jasmine, and then we'll quest with Jasmine just to get an extra quest with Eye of Fates. So either way, this Jafar is going to go down next turn, but they are going to get 1 free trade on either the Cinderella or the Jasmine. Okay, so they are going to be able to clear our board and keep the Jafar alive with that Rafiki play, so that's really good from them. So, oh, interesting. Oh, that's not a great top deck for us. I think we just want to keep questing at this point though. I'm not quite sure why they didn't trade the Jafar into the Jasmine because we're so close to 20 lore. I think that's a bit dangerous. Mr. Smee is going to be 2 lore thanks to the Eye of Fates. And we just need to top deck 1 more card to win. And here comes Mufasa, so that's pretty much a guaranteed win at this point. We technically don't even need to quest with the Mr. Smee. We might as well, because there's no point trading into the Jafar. So unless we have another Elsa of Spirit of Winter here, they are dead next turn. And even if they do have Elsa of Spirit of Winter, we just need to top deck a card with at least 1 lore, which every card in our deck has. And, you know, we're not running any reckless options. I don't think in our colors we can even run reckless options. Yeah, there goes the Spirit of Winter, so... I mean, we still just have way too much tempo, we're way too ahead on lore, 18-4. There's no way they're coming back with only getting 6 lore a turn. Oh, I thought this Jafar was a challenger card. I completely read that Jafar card wrong, actually. Alright, cool, so we'll play our Flounder and win next turn. Unless we have another Elsa Spirit of Winter. Yeah, no, I've been playing around with Jafar as if it was a challenger card the entire time, but no, it just gets plus attack for hand size, which isn't great this late into the game. I mean, these Mufasas have been having a really nice stat line for this match. I think not having removal tools when you don't run evasive cards is definitely the weakness of this deck, and kind of a hard weakness to get past if we don't really have the budget to be able to be running Let It Goes in this deck. But, I mean, if you pick up some Let It Goes yourself, and, you know, feel free to add them to the deck if you're starting out budget. This really is just intended to be a demonstration of how good of a deck you can make and play with, you know, on a very limited budget, especially with all the scalpers going around. And that's the game. GG. Thanks for watching, guys. That's the Mid-Range Princesses deck on a budget for less than the cost of free starter decks.